welcome to another episode of Spread the Bread. I think we're going to talk about Biden v. Trump, sort of what we think is going to happen, who maybe you should vote for,
Emphasis on
possibly.
the maybe.
On the maybe, yeah, don't lynch me. Does anyone want to take it away from there?
Yeah, well, supposedly, out of the whole thing that has been happening, it's just, what was it? Like, there's this one ad where Joe Biden just calls it the, quote, Chinese virus. There's arguments out there that are like, hey, Biden's going to outright Trump.
I think you cut out.
I hate it. Like, my phone is so shit.
No, it's okay. No, I think though there are people who are saying that there's like no difference, and I understand where they're coming from because I mean, sure, they're both on the right, but like there's definitely differences between the two. I mean, you have someone who's a you know normal centrist neoliberal versus someone who is, depending on who you talk to, an actual fascist or a crypto fascist, what have you. And there's a difference. I mean, to be seen there. I mean, I get people don't want to vote for Biden because he doesn't quite have the things that we exactly agree with. But to act like the other person isn't a much worse option is kind of ridiculous.
I think that Biden isn't any sort of like substantial change, but something to think about, especially if you're on the left and you are upset about Biden being chosen. He's probably the most progressive presidential. I mean, he's obviously not the nominee yet, but whenever he wins it and then forgets it, he's gonna be the most progressive nominee of all time, if not second hand to Hillary Clinton. So if you have, I mean, I think that a lot of people rightfully consider Donald Trump to be one of the worst presidents, and if not one of the most just terrible presidents. So I think that when you look at someone like Joe Biden, it's probably, I don't know, I wouldn't really say that they're the same.
Yeah, I understand thinking, they're both arguably like I consider neoliberalism on the right. So I understand people saying that we don't have any like left wing candidates. And I mean, yes, but isn't that what it normally is? I mean, that sucks, and we got to keep like trying to build a movement to like prop up more people that are Bernie Sanders or like further left. But I mean, you can't just. I understand people want to like make a stand. Basically, is what this is. It's like let's make a stand against the Democratic establishment and show them we're not going to put up with their shit. But like, I mean, I understand the mentality, but I just think it does more harm than good, and it's almost kind of childlike to act like that other people aren't going to suffer under Trump that wouldn't suffer under Biden.
Especially considering that there really isn't an alternative that is better. Because even if let's say that you're an accelerationist and you think, you know what, let's just get Trump, let's just burn this shit to the ground. I don't think that it's gonna really happen that quickly. So I think that you kind of have to pick like what's gonna happen in the meantime. Because I don't know, it kind of depends. Like some people think that, the revolution is something that we have to make happen, and then some people think it's just something that's going to happen. And I think it just kind of depends on like how you feel on that, on whether or not you really think Joe Biden is someone worth voting for.
Yeah, I
Okay.
I would get it also if like a third party candidate actually had a chance. I'd be like, yeah, we should go that way. But like, we're gonna if we're gonna be real, the only people that are gonna vote for that third party candidate, like say Howie Hawkins or Dario from the Green Party, are gonna be progressives, and we didn't have a big enough coalition to win the nominee. So I just don't see that winning us the presidency.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna start seeing the kind of lack of the progressive coalition broadly.
So do we see like a collapse of it, sort of? Because again, like I think harkening back to like the first episode, or was it? I think we started talking about like there's these people that would just not participate in it anymore, and in my sense, like they started becoming radicalized. And these people were only held by like I guess like Bernie. Like I consider one of those people myself. Like, hey, I gave it a chance. My hopes are gone. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine to think that like what we wanted to happen failed because it did. Like, there's no doubt about that. But now it's like it, it's like we're trying to like get a control over I don't want to say catastrophe, but basically you can just imagine Bernie failing is a catastrophe for the real left. So we have to kind of like do damage control now, and I understand losing faith in electoralism, but you should still take part and at least help out the few people that you can, because really, like we were talking about in the last podcast where I said that like we needed social democracy in order to get people mobile in order to have a real leftist like revolution. I mean, it's the same mentality there where if you don't make it easier on people, it's going to be harder for people to take part in these leftist organizations and actually have that sort of revolution we want. And I know it's not as much as we want, but at least, you're helping out people a little bit. I mean, you can. I wish I could show that chart, but there's like a good chart that shows the difference between Bernie, Biden, and Trump. And Biden is closer to Bernie than he is to Trump on that. And I think that's enough to go, all right, let's at least help out the little bits of people that we can with this. And plus, in the end, we've lost anyway, so why not just go ahead and vote for the worst case? Because we lost. We just have to accept that and do damage control. And then get ready for the next time. And then focus on local things too.
I can understand the fatigue, especially from like the blow vote blue no matter who. I mean, people are kind of sick of voting for the Democratic Party to not see, again, like we were saying, they're not seeing any substantial change. But here's the thing: we're not even able to win with like these like really moderate guys. So I feel like someone that's someone that's divisible for the left, let alone the right. I mean, it's gonna not be looking good. Do people really think that AOC is going to become the president next year or next election cycle?
Yeah, I think there are people that actually think that, but yeah, I just don't understand this sort of like the attitude that people are having towards the election is kind of like, if you have like a massive hole in your boat, say you're in the ocean, you're in a boat, and a hole appears and water starts leaking through it, and you have two options. Either one, try to plug up that hole the best you can so your ship doesn't sink as fast, or let the ship just sink. They just want to let the ship sink. When I'm more like, let's not let that happen, let's try to fix what we can. I don't know if that was a terrible like analogy or not, but that's kind of how I see it. Like, I understand the anger like of not wanting to vote Biden and being done with the Democrats, because I mean I feel that way. I'm like, the Democrats fucking suck, and I would like us to have a different party or something, but we don't have that this election. Like, we need that, but we don't have it set up yet, and there's nothing we can. We're not going to create a party out of nowhere. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to gain traction. That's something we need to start setting up. We need to start doing for like the next time. That's what I would say. And as of now, just kind of do damage control, whether we like it or not. I mean,
yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it's also interesting to see how many university like organizations for Bernie have said on Twitter that they're not going to endorse Joe Biden also.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand not even wanting to like endorse him. Like I wouldn't. I'm saying that people probably should, but at the same time, I'm not going to really tell anyone that they need to, because in the end, it's your vote. Do what you want. We live in a democracy. And Joe Biden and me don't have the same values. I just see him as I know people hate the lesser of two evils argument, but like, he is, and it's just, do we want to make people's lives slightly better so maybe we can get them to come around to us and have a bigger coalition for next time? Because that's what we really need. We need to focus on coalition building. I mean, I think that is what we learned from this election, is our coalition isn't as big as we think it is. Like, because there wasn't rigging this time, at least from my understanding. There wasn't like, where they just picked Hillary over Bernie when Bernie like won certain counties and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, the primary process didn't go as well. Like, you saw people flipping coins and stuff over who got delegates, but there wasn't just outright the same sort of like rigging. And I think it just kind of it gave us a nice reflection of how big the left is in America, and it's a lot smaller than we think. And I think a lot of us get trapped, including myself, in thinking that we're like this big movement because we're on Twitter and we have a big movement on Twitter, but like, or any social media. But really, we're just not as big as we think. And I'd say we're even more passionate than a lot of like the neoliberals and stuff. That's why Bernie rally turnouts are huge. But just because we're more passionate doesn't mean there's more of us. We can be as loud as we want, but that doesn't mean that we have the numbers.
I think the problem is that we're just not that loud in the ways that matter most. I mean, as often as we say that the right to vote doesn't really matter that much, I mean, in the ways that it can matter, which seem to be about more so than anything else, we don't seem to be able to show up.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the biggest criticism that people around our age get is that we don't vote, and it's really asinine, but like, a lot of people our age just don't vote. I mean, I don't like bringing up anecdotal evidence, but I couldn't tell you how many people I know just like that like Bernie, but they didn't vote because they didn't feel like it was important in the primaries. I
had that too. I talked to a lot of people where they're like, "Oh, I'll vote in the general," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool, but like, we kind of need you now," because like, there wasn't. I mean, I understood on Twitter where people were saying if you don't vote for Biden, it's a vote for Trump, and they were like, "Well, I'll say a vote against Bernie in the primary was a vote for Trump," and I understand that thinking because a lot of people like didn't vote at all, and I mean those are. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's also suppression. We can talk about the long lines and stuff as well, but we also just didn't have a big enough turnout. I don't think we're as big as we think we are either.
I guess it just depends on like how big you think we are. I think a lot of people are woefully misguided. I mean, I'd like to believe that I'm not one of those people because I'm pretty nihilistic about that. But yeah, I think that this is really highlighting that there's just not enough people. I mean, people keep going like, "Oh well, Bernie is the best chance to beat Trump," and it's like, but is he really? Like when I was really getting down into the nitty gritty, do I think that more people would vote for Bernie Sanders compared to Donald Trump? I don't really think so.
I think so, but I think that's just because you have the neoliberal voters would give in to Bernie just because they like hate Trump more than anything. They see that as the biggest problem in America versus necessarily the things Trump has done, just Trump himself. So I think Bernie would definitely have a chance because of that. But I think though, compared to like him versus Biden, I mean, the fact that more people voted for a guy who literally has brain soup over Bernie, that to me just reflects either that we have really bad turnout or we're just not as big as we think we are. And I'm gonna say that we're just not as big as we think we are because, I mean, yes, we did have some, problems with voter turnout, but I would say it's primarily we're just not as big as we want to be, or we're just really loud. I would say also is the thing. So we think that we're like this huge thing, but I don't know. I just don't think so.
Interesting. You think that Bernie would have garnered against Trump?
If it was Bernie against Trump, I think Bernie would have won. I think all the polling data I saw said that, and I think the thing is, if it was Bernie versus Trump, Bernie would get the liberal vote, because they're like the whole like orange man bad sort of thing. It's just anything but
Well,
Trump.
Do you think that he would have a worse or better chance compared to Biden?
I think they're pretty much the same, because I think Biden versus Trump is pretty like flip floppy. I'd say it'd be pretty similar, but I think the thing is they would both fare equally against Trump, in my opinion. But the thing is, the Democrats overall, the voter base was more Biden, more like Biden. I think that's more the problem, where the problem lies. I think like whoever goes against Trump, unless it was like, well, I guess just anyone that was in the Democratic Party, if they ran against Trump, basically would have the same odds.
That's interesting to me.
Well, I mean, think about it. Think about the neoliberal sort of like mantra of vote blue no matter who. I mean, like, I think they would honestly have stuck with that even if it was Bernie.
I guess like I guess I don't see that. I don't see it really working. Like I think that if you would have put Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg out there, I think they would have gotten fucking slaughtered. Especially because okay, so if Bernie can't garner enough votes to win the Democratic nomination, I can't really see him garnering enough votes to win the general election.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that I think he would, though, is because the people who voted against Bernie in the Democratic Party, I think would end up voting for him in the general, because they would vote for whoever was going against Trump. Because as much as they gave us like a lot of shit and stuff during the election, during the primary, I think when it came down to the general, they would pick Bernie over Trump. Because most of those people who voted Biden over Bernie were just basically the same like vote blue no matter who types of people.
I think that the socialism thing would really turn a lot of people off. For example, I think that if Bernie would have gotten the nomination last year, I think that he would have lost pretty bad.
I think I would normally agree with you, but I think the word has been kind of normalized, like not completely, but definitely more so than even last election. And I think
it's not about the word. It's about like I don't think that Bernie Sanders I don't think he's popular enough with a great amount of people. I think that the point that the blue no matter who point is really interesting, because I do think that the Democrats, at least I semi hope, are able to bring some sort of like left coalition against Trump. But I don't really think that you would see that. I think that a lot of Democrats would rather Donald Trump be the president than Bernie Sanders.
So
I just disagree.
No, I don't see that happening yet.
I just, at least from my interaction, of course, this is mainly anecdotal and polling data as well. I mean, I saw more Trump hate than I saw. Like, yeah, you saw Bernie hate, but that was because of it's the primary. They'd rather have Biden. But I think when it came down to Trump versus Bernie, these people really do not like Trump, even if they don't know why they don't like Trump. And I think that is enough to get them to basically vote for whoever was going against him. At least in the Democratic Party, not like, some third party, but...
So do you just think that like whoever runs against Trump is just going to win?
I don't know if they're going to win, but I think that they would definitely have the same odds, basically.
Okay, question. Going back to the point where, like, we as in, like, when somebody said we, it meant, like, like the people who supported Bernie. Where are we the most loudest at? Like, by that you meant, like, online? or outside of it?
So I mean, we're loud online, but we're also loud as in like we have a lot of turnout to like Bernie's events and stuff. I think that just shows how passionate people are. I don't, but that doesn't really show our numbers. I mean, like you see it all the time where like crowds are louder than they are big, so they seem like a bigger problem than they are. And I kind of think we kind of have the same thing within the left, where it's like we're really loud, we'll show up with things, we're really passionate, we'll like try to organize and all these things, but we're just not the size that we think we are based upon how loud we are.
Mhm. So like
Yeah, I mean,
there's that.
Because the thing about it, if it was an
Sorry.
accurate reflection, think about how many people showed up to Bernie rallies versus how many people showed up to Joe Biden rallies, and then just look at who people voted for. I mean, I think that's a really good thing. Like, Bernie's rallies were all huge, but voting wise, it Biden won. Like, I think that's just a
I think
good
I
way to
think
look at
the
it.
problem is that the other side, like Biden, gets like the kind of crowds that Bernie does. I mean, so does Trump. That's actually one of the biggest things is that Trump has actually a pretty, even if they don't know what the hell he actually stands for, but people that like Trump will stick by Trump. I think that we show up in rallies and we show up online and we definitely give him money. I mean, Bernie Sanders shows that we're with the grassroots efforts. You're able to get fundraising, which has been probably one of the most important things that has been for us because progressives don't really have a ton of money.
Yeah, I think we're like, I mean, we're active is the thing. Is we're really active, but we're just not huge. Like for instance, I would say it's almost the opposite for like Biden supporters, where they're not necessarily as active, but they're huge. Like it's almost kind of like I don't want to say the silent majority, but that's almost what it seems like. It's just this like ton of people that are going to
Yeah.
vote Biden that don't necessarily even talk about politics or go to rallies, but that's what they're going to vote for.
See, I think that I feel like just like the general tide of things tends to trend towards like someone like Biden. Like all of the establishment people, I don't really think they separate themselves that much in terms of policy. Like I don't know, you like Pete Buttigieg if you like fucking like Greek yogurt ice cream more, like some weird shit. Like they're all just different sides of the same ass cheek. None of them really stands apart. Maybe Elizabeth Warren. I just don't really think progressivism is that popular. I mean, what percentage of people that vote for Bernie Sanders would vote for Joe Biden in the general election? I mean, and on the contrary, what percentage of people that voted for Joe Biden would vote for Bernie if he were in? I mean, I guess it's not like a feasible thing.
Wait, say that again?
So, I think I might have stumbled there. I think that just basically the coalition just isn't that big. I'm wondering like what of the percentage of people that vote even identify as progressives or would consider voting for Bernie.
Well, that's what I'm mainly getting at. Is I
If you
just
weren't.
I don't think we're that big, and I don't think that people like when I'm saying that I think Bernie would have the same odds as Biden. I'm not saying that as in like people necessarily want to vote Bernie, but I think they would rather vote Bernie over Trump is mainly what I'm getting at. I don't think they're like going to be they're just it's going to be the same attitude towards a lot of people who are going to go to the polls and vote Biden. Like I know a lot of leftists are talking a big game about how they're not going to vote, but I think honestly a good portion of them are going to still go out and vote Biden. And I think it'd be the same mentality of like, oh, I really don't want to vote for the socialists, but whatever it takes to get Trump out of office.
Yeah, my thing is, I believe that the vast majority of Americans don't really care that much about politics, and they're still scared of the word socialism. And I really do, like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I do think that if it was between Bernie and Trump, then I think Trump probably would have won. Because, yeah, you do see a lot of attacks on Trump, but I mean, I honestly just think that the words, socialism scares people more than Trump does.
I don't know. I disagree with that, and I would say probably most of the polling data that I've seen disagrees with that. I mean, if you look at all the polls that were coming out, all of them had Bernie beating Trump.
Yeah, but you also had polls saying that Hillary was.
I know, but if we're going to use polls as a reason to say that most likely Biden can beat Trump, I think it's fair to use those same polls to say that Bernie can beat Trump.
Yeah.
Also, just because the polls predicted Donald Trump to win doesn't mean that they're inaccurate. I mean, it's just based off like random sampling, and it's not foolproof. But if that were to be the case, that everybody would just win along the polling, like I just kind of want to refrain from the idea that polling data doesn't necessarily accurately show it, because a lot of people say, like, polling data showed that Hillary was going to win in 2016, and it's like, she very easily could have.
I mean, she technically won the popular vote. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my thing. I mean, I guess that's something that we can't really ever know, because, I mean, Bernie isn't the nominee.
I do think that it's so difficult to tell, honestly. I mean, we are, we get on our own little bubbles online, and we're surrounded by, like-minded people, but it's really difficult to gauge what the, political climate of the U.S. is right now.
I think the easiest way is just to look at, like, turnout that you can. I mean, like, a lot of people think that Texas could potentially turn sometime soon, but I don't really know.
Yeah.
And it's...
I would say Texas can be pretty close to... I don't know if we'll turn soon, but we're definitely, like, almost like a battleground state, I'd say, after looking at how the Senate went. I mean, we're not total... I wouldn't say we're blue by any means. We're probably, like, purple leaning red, but I'd say we're getting pretty close to that purple range. Especially with the influx of, like, people moving from, like, California and things into Texas. I mean, you see the conservatives pissed about that, saying, "Don't California my Texas." You know. I don't really know, though. I mean, we won't really know because, Bernie isn't the nominee.
It's kind of tough to say because more people voted in Texas for the Republican primary last year than voted in the Democratic primary this year. And, this year is the most that the Democrats have been able to muster.
Yeah.
Do you also think that that could have also just been because the Republicans have a surefire, shot of winning this year? Well, I mean, they have a surefire shot of getting Trump, that's what I meant to say, but I kind of lost where I'm getting at with that, but...
Sorry, I was like, yeah. Well, that's why I'm not really... that's why I bring up the polling from the results from last year rather than this year, because I think that more Democrats voted in this primary than Republicans did, but I think that the reason that is because they only had one choice.
Yeah.
No, I just think for sure, though, that if you're gonna vote, just vote Biden over Trump if you care about harm reduction. If you don't care at all, then I suppose you're not gonna listen anyway. But I think if we want a chance at our coalition getting as big as we think that it is, we can't afford to worsen people's lives if we have an opportunity to make them better, which are those people that we're gonna help in this case have potential to join us over here, But I understand also just being fed up with Democrats. I mean, I get it. Democratic Party sucks, but
I think it's the political apathy that really is one of the biggest driving factors in our inactivity. I don't think that the cycle started because people were just like, fuck it, I'm not going to vote, man. I'm just going to sit around and look at how many marbles I have. I think it's because people were voting and they realized, hey, nothing's really fucking changing.
Yeah. I think I don't want to pull like the privilege card out on people, but I also think that if this election really doesn't matter to you in which way it swings, that also shows like a level of privilege you have that it does not affect you if Trump is president versus if Biden is. When that will literally affect people.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why I would try to advocate for Biden over Trump. I don't really think that you'd have to vote because I don't see Biden as that much of a step up from Trump. But that being said, I do see him as a step up from Trump in almost every way. Though that's the biggest reason is that I can't find a single thing that people like, or at least on the left, rather, that people like Trump over than Biden.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is like the difference between those?
Hold up, I have a chart.
Yeah, because I personally wouldn't find any single difference in between those two. Like, again, if we want to go back to, like, what Joe Biden did as vice president, he was the one who furnished the cages, you know, that a lot of people do always, like, hey, don't you care about people?
See, that's true, but Trump has done, like, nothing for healthcare. I think that that's true. I think that on some of the really bad things, there are no differences, especially considering that Trump has taken the immigration and foreign policy standards of like drone striking and putting children in cages, and Trump has applied that with even like to a much higher degree. So they have done some of the bad things, but even the bad things that Joe Biden and Trump has in common, Trump has been worse on.
Yeah. I send a chart into the chat that shows a lot of things. Like, for instance, Biden versus Trump on $15 minimum wage. Biden supports $15 minimum wage, while Trump doesn't. Which, we can go ahead and talk about how many people that would affect alone. Like, that simple stance would definitely affect people's lives a good bit.
Think of any policy decision that you could possibly think of, and Biden has a more progressive, and yes, I will say that, progressive view on it.
Yeah, but my problem, I think, would come out to, like, is he going to actually do it? Is his administration actually going to do it? Or is it just, you know...
Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
Like, hey, there
I saw someone say that recently, and I understand that, but wouldn't you rather risk the chance of having that happen versus just absolutely knowing it's not going to happen? I'd rather, like, roll my dice on someone who's saying they're going to do it than someone who won't even say they're going to do it.
Biden's version of healthcare is much more likely to be able to come into existence compared to Medicare for all. Maybe that's not something that we want, and I would probably argue that it's not. But if having some sort of national healthcare compared to not having it, I'd say that one of them is more optimal than the other. But that's the way that I see it. Is like I truly see it as like the lesser of two evils. I see them both as fundamentally bad, but one of them unilaterally is better than the other. Like I can't think of a single thing that Trump wants that Biden I guess rather like I can't think of a single thing that Biden wants that Trump wants something better than.
Yeah, Biden's even for 2 years free of college, apparently. And to allow bankruptcy on student loan debt, which those are not as good as like what Bernie was running on, but those are also things that would like personally affect, I mean, not me now because I'm past 2 years of college, but a lot of young people that are going into college who are like, susceptible to predatory loans and things like that. There's just, yes, he is not ideal by any means, but he is better. And I mean, we can try and act like that's not the case, but it is. I mean, them be the facts, man.
Yeah, I guess. So, like, the argument, he would somewhat, like,
I think you're cutting
Like
out a little
if I,
bit.
yeah, like I think like like the argument is like getting Trump out of office is like the mitigating factor. Like yeah, sure, Biden is equally as shit, but like I think that's just going to 2016 again. It's just like hey, have a shit sandwich or have on shit Sunday. I don't think
Yeah,
like it's actually gonna lead to anything.
I mean, I get that, but my thing is what's the alternative? What do you do alternatively? Like, do you do nothing and then just let a fascist run the country? Because I mean that's what if people who are saying not to vote for Biden, I mean if they're voting third party, at least I can go. At least they are voting for someone that they feel like fits their policy positions better. But the people who are like straight up just saying I'm not gonna vote because I think both the options are bad and I want to send a bird to the DNC. It's like okay, so you're just okay with someone who's a fascist taking office. Like I mean, I don't know. I just see that as problematic. I mean, I think we're supposed to be against fascism, but I just see a lot of people like allowing it to like exist and grow by not actively doing what they can to fight it because they're mad. And I get being mad and I get being upset and I'm totally there with that, but I don't know, I think we have to think about what our decisions do in the long term. It's short sighted to just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm not gonna vote. And just let people like suffer from that.
Yeah, no, I see that point. Okay, my question is then like, because we're still within the framework of electoralism. Sure, like I mean, I've established the fact that like I do not have faith in it anymore. Um, what are the alternatives, especially if we're thinking about like the corona is still looming around the environment? Is there going to be a point where we return to this sort of normalcy? Like just by normalcy, I mean like okay, like Corona subsides, and then we go with the election in November. I don't think normal will come to normal doesn't exist anymore after Corona. I think, and that's why I'm somewhat kind of in the position that like maybe electoral politics can't will move towards something else like I don't know, like Corona is a big fucking deal. That's why I have started thinking of that in this way. And also, like today, if we're thinking about what happened today, oil prices just literally went down. What are what are the implications that does have, today and next week, next month?
I think having the feeling of being like giving up on electoralism is is kind of I get it because I'm sympathetic to that, but I don't think that means that you don't at least like you can have no faith in it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote. I guess is what I'm saying. It's not like it's not an excuse not to vote, even if like I mean I guess whenever I cast my vote and it'll probably go towards Biden. Um, I mean I'm not casting it like um having faith necessarily in Biden, but in order to have some sort of harm reduction, so we can continue to do things outside of electoral politics, like being able to organize and like educate people, as we were talking about before. Like pushing basically propaganda. I think that's one of the most important things left to me doing right now.
Yeah, now I get.
Yeah, I'm not saying have faith completely in like like vote Biden and then just be like we're done, leftism's done, we did it. Because I don't think that's at all. I think we vote Biden to save a ton of people that are going to suffer further under Trump, and then we keep pushing our movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I do get.
And the people that we
again,
help out through Biden's presidency versus Trump, we try to get them over on our side because now, if their lives are a little bit easier, they can afford more time to maybe organize with us and things like that. I mean, we have to grow numbers. I mean, that's what we know. We know that we are not as big as we thought we are, and we know that's something we have to fix. And keeping people hurting under our current presidency isn't going to get us to getting our numbers bigger.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thinking of how do we actually propagate that? That's one thing that, like we've been talking about a lot. How do we propagate that? How do we get people to start thinking in ways like this? I think we talked about this in like the last episode, like just a little bit, right?
I think that we just kind of have to win the marketplace of ideas. Like I hate saying that, but until we can find the way to like circumnavigate not being the culturally dominant idea, which again I feel like the whole point of our strife is to reach that. Like what we want is contingent upon being a cultural majority. I just think that we try to push people in that way. I think that I hate saying like we try to educate people, but whatever. I'm literally going to be a teacher, so I don't even sound that.
Yeah.
I don't sound that much like a dick saying it, but I think we could just show people that just misinterpret the really easy things, because people don't like terms. Like they vote for Joe Biden because they go, that was Obama's vice president, and they don't like socialism because they think of Stalin. Or I guarantee you, if you asked the general public who Mao Zedong was, very few of them would go, "Oh yeah, that was the guy from China, right?" Like that. That was
Or like how or like how Biden would be like, oh yeah, like I talked to Deng Xiaoping, and if you know who Deng Xiaoping is, like you'd call him like a revisionist scumbag. But that's I think where I was actually gonna lead to it too, because like again, I'm gonna bring back Corona into all of this. If you think about like what Corona has done to people materially, like again, I'm gonna bring back the point of like all these people out there protesting. Oh, let us go back to work. Like it's getting dire. Now, how are we supposed to like imprint the idea to people? Like hey, like it sucks, but maybe start thinking about it this way. Do we somewhat repackage that and kind of quit with the terms? I guess you would say. Like
are you asking how we get people to drop their guard in like hearing the word socialist and actually being able to listen to our ideas?
Like do we call it something else?
So
repackage it.
I don't think.
I just think
no,
that's all you know.
Yeah, you just have to like. So I mean, I can give like a straight up strategy that I've done myself, but the basic idea is what I think is important. This sorry. Basically, what I normally do when I'm talking to someone that I feel like could probably move left and join us or whatever is I won't use the term like socialist, for instance, but I'll say like I'll say something like I'll talk about like worker cooperatives, for instance. That's a really easy one, or some sort of policy that we really agree with, and I talk to them about that policy, and I get them over on the policy. When I get them agreeing with a bunch of policies that I'm talking about, then I'm like, oh, well, then you should check out like this organization, which is like maybe like the DSA or something. And all of a sudden, now they're like, well, shit, I don't disagree with socialists like I thought I was. They're not who I thought who I thought they were. And it's because in that sense you're educating them on what socialists stand for, how we're not like Stalinist over here who want to throw everyone in gulags. Like that's not what we're advocating for. And I think you basically have to get them on like what we stand for. And if you're afraid of them being scared of like the term, just talk policy. That's it. Just talk policy.
Right. Like not using such like scary terms.
Yeah, you don't have to use ideology.
Digestible.
Yeah, you don't even have to use ideology. Just use policy that we like. And I mean, a lot of the policy that we like, people like agree with. Like I heard like apparently a lot of people who voted for like Biden thought that he was for like legalizing marijuana, which isn't the case. And like there's policy people like will widely agree with us on. I mean, marijuana is just like not really a socialist policy, but just for example, that people agree with us on, but they also think that their other options stand for those, and they see socialism, like socialist policies, not being those policies. They see socialist policies being things that like Stalin would do or something. So you have to just get them on board policy wise, and then introduce them to an organization or something, or you can flip on them and go, hey, did you know you agree with socialism? Or like, something along those lines. But it's basically just educating them on the ideas instead of trying to shove an ideology on them. I kind of rambled a bit, but I hope that made sense.
No. Like that is pretty much spot on too, because like I think like earlier before I was talking about like how a lot of people kind of romanticize the idea of like, hey, like look, I understand theory, therefore like I'm going to impose it on you, or not impose, kind of just seem like it's more intellectual to be. And I think I was talking about like, yeah, like the working class already knows what it is. It's just like they don't have the terms for it. So I think if we manage to like make it, like approachable, something.
Well, think about what
so technical.
Marx and Engels did in Wage, Labor, and Capital, that little pamphlet, right? That was them distilling. I mean, it's hard for us to kind of read now because they wrote way differently than we did, and there's translations and things like that. But the way that they were writing that was to go more away from this intellectual theory and trying to put it in like common terms for the working class to understand and actually be able to use. And I think we kind of have to do that as well. I think, for instance, talking about the means of production, if you can go around without saying like, oh, we got to take means of production. If you can go around and say something like, I think you should have like some sort of representative in your workplace, or I think you should have a say in like how you're treated at work, or these kind of things, people will latch onto that, better. We had to break down sort of the things that we learn from reading theory, discussing theory and stuff, and put it in terms that other people can actually engage with.
Yes. Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree.
If you talk over their head, they can't use what you're talking about, I can talk about the proletariat needing to seize the means of production all day long, but if they're not like a leftist, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's just not helpful to them.
Also, like, I mean, just like you explain to them what things are,
Yeah, that too. I mean, it just it all depends on like, I guess who you're talking to, but also just breaking things down. Like, if you do want to just be like, yeah, I'm a socialist, and you want to talk to them about that, like, don't just let them, go, well, isn't socialism this like really awful? I mean, if they're willing to engage, that is, of course. Be like, no, let me explain it to you, and then like tell them what it is, and not what they, what they've been basically trained to think it is. I think that's the thing, is we're fighting a lot of misinformation is the main thing the left has to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the capitalist propaganda, it's thrown.
It is pretty common. I mean, like, even if you are actually somewhat educating yourself, sometimes, like, you manage to grab some sort of, capitalist propaganda, and you're like, wait a minute, this might not work.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're fighting against. We need a propaganda war. We gotta, like, start pushing out stuff. And right now, capitalists are winning that war. I mean, that's why, we were talking about people possibly still being scared of Bernie Sanders for him being a socialist, because they're scared of socialism. And I don't think it's because people necessarily disagree with socialism. I think they just have no idea what it is, because capitalist propaganda has painted it as this, like, as death itself, basically.
Yeah, it is and has been painted that way too. Like, even like, they would still paint it as like, holy shit, this thing is demonic. It's purge it from your Catholic mind. But I don't know, like, going to theory just a little bit, like, since some of us have started reading a little bit of like State and Revolution, there's this one thing from Lenin that he said. I forgot what writing it was, but there is this point where he recalls or states that the First World War was the great accelerator. Now, do you guys see like a connection between Corona being a great accelerator?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was Marx who wrote it exactly, or if it was something Lenin wrote on top of Marx, but basically saying you have to have a crisis in order for socialism to happen. I mean, I think Corona is kind of an example of where people are going to be more open-minded to the ideas that we can put forward, because they're seeing sort of some of the contradictions in capitalist propaganda like show themselves. And I think that's kind of a point where like right now is really important to be trying to educate people. Like, I mean, talk to whoever you can if they're willing to listen, like your coworkers and etc. Because right now people are willing to listen because we're seeing sort of a failure within the system that we live in.
Yeah, like that's what I am kind of thinking about now. Because what was it? Have we talked about like these kind of medical or like economic alliances? I'm not too sure what those are, but like with states, for example, like the Pacific states have started talking about having coordination in between them, even the Northeast, right? And what was it? The Midwest has started doing this, like the states kind of coming together. Like, yeah, like there's holes in the system. There's vacuums of like small vacuums of power that are appearing. So, like, I think if you are somewhat, like within the leftist camp, maybe, just start talking to other people about it. Like, it doesn't have to be some grand gesture or some big propaganda that you're making. Just talk to people about it because, like Noah said, like, people are a little bit more receptive because it's scary out there. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we have some sort of economic like crisis happen, it's when people start questioning sort of what they. I mean, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is you see a lot of people who had these like presuppositions to things like socialism, and now they're kind of going, well, are those accurate? Because capitalism isn't necessarily as good as I've been told it is. And I think this is just a time you can take advantage of something like that and educate people. I mean, I hate saying educate because I don't think people are dumb. I just think that, I mean, it's just fighting propaganda. I mean, at one point I was, definitely thinking socialism was evil, right there too. I mean, it's just people are ingrained with this idea that socialism is bad and capitalism is good. And once they have a moment to question it, that's when we need to like go all in, and we need to be like, I mean, not even like you said, not even making like necessarily full on propaganda. Like, you don't have to be writing papers, you don't have to be making videos, even though I think those things are super helpful. I think just having conversations with people. I think those also are more people are more willing to listen. Like, and I don't mean like conversations just online, because actually I feel like those probably are less likely to work out, but like, like I was saying, your coworkers, the people that you're around on a daily basis, like, if you have honest conversation with them, they're gonna listen, and maybe they still don't agree, but they're at least gonna listen, and that's a chance for us to bring people over.
Yeah, I mean, basically just like talk politics with people. I mean, I know people go like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," but I can think of plenty of people that were not anywhere near the left, and like I've just like talked to them about like being on the left and some of the ideas. They were like, "Hey, that's pretty cool." Like I know a lot of people that kind of got engaged to like being on the left, or mainly like maybe like from like Bernie. Like a lot of people like Bernie because someone was like, "Oh, I'm gonna vote for Bernie." I'm like, "Tell me about Bernie." Uncle Bernie.
Exactly. I mean, I know personally from being at work that I have people more comfortable with the word socialist than they were previously, because I already call myself one if I don't call myself a communist. So like, I mean, I just say these like radical things that have kind of normalized in these people's heads, and they're more like willing to hear out these ideas because like I've just normalized it for them by talking to them about them. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say they all call themselves socialists, but like most of them were telling me they were going to vote Bernie, like, and they were being genuine about it. They're like, "No, yeah, you have a good case for Bernie. I like him." It's just these. We also just have to remember that people that don't agree with us are people, and they can be reached.
You sure about that?
Yes.
Oh my god.
They're people.
Jesus.
I mean, I know people on the internet do not like to act like it. We like to act like they're like Satan, but I mean, I think a lot of them are just misguided people. I mean, I think, yeah, like I said before, fascist, fuck fascist. There's not much you can do for them, but anyone who's starting to go down that route, or even just neoliberals, they can be reached. if you want to put forth the
Yeah.
effort. And I think we
I
have
think
to.
you just said. You got it. Sorry.
That was it. I was just saying. I just think we have to put forth that effort. Like I think if we're serious about a movement, we have to put forth the effort to having these conversations with people that we disagree with and convincing them over.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially since like it's kind of like falling. I don't want to say falling apart, but like it's somewhat split. Sorry, that was mostly what I was gonna say.
I think that we just need to try our best with what we can do in terms of like continued advocacy. I mean, I think that the electoral system is going to probably end up failing us in the long run, but Bernie is an elected official. He's gotten closer than basically the closest that I've seen of any other left-wing person or true left-wing person.
Yeah, I think that's just the most important thing to keep in mind is like advocacy. And if you're serious about growing this movement, stop trying to just cancel people and start trying to like bring them over. I mean, like one person, for every person that you cancel, you lose a voter. I mean, like you lose someone on our team. Instead, we should be trying to like get them to join us. And I know it's hard because people are fucking annoying, and don't get me wrong, they don't know what they're talking about half the time. But like, is that really their fault that they don't know what they're talking about?
It's like we were talking about how there are people that are like legitimately racist that are in the left, but and this is a tough issue, but in spite of that, people that are racist tend to. I mean, I don't know if this is an unpopular like thought, but people that are racist tend to go right wing pretty hard.
Yeah. Controversial opinion there, Alex. Yeah, no, I think.
I think that you should still try to like get these people on our side because I do think that they should have like people are always like, well, why did this person get fired from their job because they said like I think that all people from Montana are subhuman or some fucking bullshit,
Yeah, I think we have a group of people that I think do this well on YouTube. Not to name drop, but you have like Vosh and you have Destiny and like all these other like bread tubers that bring people over, and I think just more people need to have that same like mentality of like having conversations with these people that we could even possibly radically disagree with. But like through those conversations, I mean, you see people, I mean, as long as they're not being overly dogmatic, I mean, move. You
just have to fucking like turn into a cancer that just keeps multiplying and multiplying, and eventually there's nothing that they can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Because as of now, like, if we talk about any sort of like instantaneous like societal change, I don't think it's gonna happen soon. I mean, I might be wrong, but hey.
I think that Corona is going to see. I think that due to Corona, we're probably going to see some sort of big change, and I feel like something probably politically. I think that nationalized healthcare or something along the lines of that is going to start to become more important. I think that addressing not only like economic inequality, but like directly like income inequality, which I would say is different than wealth inequality, which is also a really big problem. I think that these are going to be more on the forefront of people's minds now, especially because a lot of people are going, oh, well, why are people even protesting about wanting to go out? Are they just bored at home? It's like, nah, they probably are like, I need money.
Yeah, that's why like I am solidly in the belief that, after all this passes, the corona passes, normal isn't going to be normal anymore. Whatever happens after this won't be what we're used to. Because again, like, it's not really a lot of money. Like, $1,200.
Nil, you keep cutting out a little bit, man.
Oh. Where was I? Sorry. It's because, like, my phone is, like, slidey. But, what I was saying was like people are now kind of thinking about like what's gonna happen after, because like what happened. I thought you can't magically make money out of like thin air, and then small businesses are getting bailouts. Where I think I read an article where small businesses will only get it, but according to some loophole, McDonald's, all these other chain restaurants gets it because it has to be like a locality. I forgot what it was, but it's just crazy. Oh, how are you gonna pay for it? How are you gonna pay for it? Hey, they can make it out of thin air.
Yeah, I think seeing the government help out corporations more than they're helping out people definitely will have people questioning what the fuck are those people doing.
I think the main problem is red line go down.
Red line, big line, go down.
Stocks.
So what do you
down.
What do you guys think about oil line going down? Is that like a big thing, a bad
Okay,
thing?
what was causing that? Because I haven't looked into that. I just saw that and I was just like, oh my god, that's awful.
Okay, so right now,
demand's at an all-time low.
Yeah, there's no demand for oil. I mean, there's no people driving across country or anything. There's very little shipping of products, and our oil reserves are almost completely filled.
Dude, I guarantee that is something people did not see, like, did not think about. Because I didn't think about that even being a thing that would happen, but...
Well, I could have certainly saw it coming, but like I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but long positions on futures for oil in May, it went negative, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's not something that's ever happened, before in history. So it'll be interesting to see how that.
All right, George, what do you think the implications of that are? Because what I'm thinking as of now is, look at all the major oil producers. One of my friend mentioned it to him. Shout out Doug. He mentioned it to me that these things aren't even supposed to be shut off. These valves are meant to be producing, to be out there churning out stuff. Now it's getting shut off.
Well, to be completely honest, I don't know what the infrastructure is like on how easy it is to turn these things off and what, how easy that's going to be. But, I mean, this is certainly going to have a resonating impact on our economy for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for what instance do you think that would come out?
What do you mean?
Like, what impact are you kind of seeing right now in regards to that?
Well, I don't know. To be completely honest, it is certainly going to have an impact, but it'd be interesting to see.
I can tell you one thing that it is impacting. It's probably going to impact voting, because, for instance, my own mother, who has been very apolitical, usually sided on the conservative side, said the way that Trump and his administration have handled this whole coronavirus thing, she's like, yeah, I'm voting for Biden. Like, she was asking me, she was like, is Biden a good vote? She's like, I just can't. Trump has handled this too bad, and I basically, mother instincts of I don't want my kids, in danger from this guy, handling crisis wrong. She's moved over. I think you may see that with a bunch of people who are they think they're right leaning, and they've voted that way, but they don't really. They're kind of apolitical. I think this crisis will kind of wake some of them up and go, wow, politics do kind of matter, and that's not who I want in office. So, I mean, I think some of the things that bad are happening, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're bad, and I wish they didn't happen, but I do think there may be some sort of benefit we may get out of it, which is, trying to move the country, left, which is kind of all we can ask for in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one somewhat like hot take that I think this would cause. I'm not too sure why, but I just think it might spark another oil war, or at the at the very least, like Saudi Arabia is going to feel a lot of pressure. Because I mean, according to my understanding, like Saudi Arabia is pretty much buoyed up by oil money. And what they started doing some liberalization policies because they wanted to move away from that. Now they haven't completed that all, all according to like what I know. I might be wrong in most of these accounts, but yeah, that's dangerous for a lot of these like oil producing companies who are only buoyed up by the oil, by black gold. And I think an oil war might happen.
Has anyone seen how this has affected the U.S. currency by any chance? Because I know our currency gets value from how oil is sold in Saudi Arabia.
Well, I know that gold is really high right now. I didn't see exactly where it's at, but I mean, people are putting their assets in something tangible right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because I know that.
I mean, I guess compared to which country, because each country is experiencing its own thing, so it might be like, oh well, it's not doing well in.
Well, the reason why I'm asking though is just because like overall most currency is pretty like, I mean they have movements, but overall it's pretty stable, and I know that the USD is not only backed up by this, but when people get oil from Saudi Arabia, they're required to transfer their money into USD in order to get it, and that uplifts the USD's like value because now it has a reason to have value, which is in order to buy oil. So I was kind of curious if that affected it, but it doesn't really seem like it's like in the short term it's kind of down, but like overall, it's not. It's doing just fine.
I've also been looking online. From what little I've seen, I think there is something going on between Russia and Saudi Arabia where they're having like a oil price, war between them, and I can't seem to understand why. Like, it's clear that there's not that much travel going on right now. I can't see why they would be wanting to output as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that began way before, like, I think around January or February that started to happen. Because I do remember it being concurrent with, like, all those memes going, oh, look, like, red line go down. Stonks. But yeah, I don't understand it either. Like, I'm not gonna like be like I get it, but like no, like I don't have any prior knowledge to it as of what.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it. I haven't looked into it.
Unless we're gonna get really low gas prices.
We already got pretty low gas prices. It's been kind of nice. I'll say that's one good thing.
I would say like $1.20.
Yeah, I filled up the other day
I've seen $1.22.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's funny because when this like pandemic first really when shit really hit the fan first, then one of the things I made sure to do was to fill my car up with gas and keep it full whenever I can, because I didn't want it to be like when what was it, Harvey hit, and I couldn't get gas for like a couple weeks. But that's like the one thing that we do get right now.
Yeah.
Like, no problem.
I kind of think I should get some barrels and just like fill them up with gas.
Yeah, that sounds
Dude, like how are we? I don't know if it's just crude oil, but like yeah, like let's refine some oil. Boys.
Dude, I saw some people on Twitter asking like, where do I get one of these barrels?
Let's get the oil.
Because I don't know how accurate it is, but like it's apparently like I'm pretty fucking sure this is wrong, but it's apparently like what 5 cents per barrel.
Dude, I'm trying to buy some barrels of oil. Bro, are the barrels more expensive than the oil itself now? That's fucking nuts.
That's some shit happening today.
Yep, that is. At least we can enjoy low gas prices as of now. I know probably people who are working in the oil industry probably ain't doing too good, but it helps me out, with my job needing gas all the time.
I'm not as worried about people in the gas industry right now.
Well, I guess I'm talking about like the workers, not necessarily the owners of those businesses.
Wow. No
I-
solidarity.
I still am not as worried about the oil workers.
My hometown is basically just oil workers, so I kind of know what it's like whenever oil doesn't do well there. You see all the people's vehicles getting put in the used car lots. It's not good for them. I mean, we could just say get another job, but I mean, we already don't like that argument when you hear that from right-leaning people, so I'm not about to say that to people who work in the oil field.
Well, you can't even say like get another job right now because it's like, well,
Yeah.
well, what? Like, where are you gonna interview?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel bad for them. I hope oil at least kind of stabilizes, as long as we're having to use oil. That is. I hope it stabilizes soon, just for their sake.
It's not. I mean, it's basically not going to be able to go back up to normal
Until everything gets back to normal.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll give them a reason to stay inside.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, like, as much as I don't want these people to catch, like, the corona when they're out there, it's just like, can you really blame the corona if they actually get infected? Like,
yeah, okay, so I'm really
Why?
torn. I'm really torn on this whole thing because, like, I understand that a lot of them want, like, to be able to go do things because they need money. Like, I get that. But at the same time, the more we're sheltered in and we let the, spread of this die down, the faster we can go to work for long term. I'm afraid that if we were, like, to open up everything, everyone went back to normal, you would basically have, like, a second wave. And then we'd have to, like, do it all over again.
And it's like, if we're basing it off of, like, the Spanish flu, the second one. I'm sorry, it's not the Spanish flu, it's the, fucking... where did it come from? One of those military bases here. But anyways, like, yeah, like, if we're basing it off of that, like, the second wave was the most deadliest out of the three waves. And, like, imagine the scale of people just going back to work and then going, like, maybe if we gather herd immunity, whatever the fuck their claims were, more people are going to die. And aren't there, like, already, like, claims that are calling that, like, yeah, like, the second wave might be coming, like,
We'll definitely have one if we open all up. Definitely have one. We're also about to hit, we're a little over an hour. If y'all may want to wrap things up unless y'all have anything else to talk about.
Everyone's going to die from corona.
Yeah.
Yep, I mean...
Everyone's gonna die eventually.
I mean... Yeah. That's a sad truth. But, yeah, can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
So I guess
Stay healthy.
I guess on that dark note of everyone's gonna die eventually, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
See you on the flip side. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay inside, please protest.